Cool.
All right, guys, we'll go ahead and get this last talk started. Sorry, Chris. But introduce Chris Tyo from Ashland. We're going to talk about data loss prevention, and let him take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Josh. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, this is the last talk of the day. Thanks for sticking around. The beer flow, I checked, ends at 6 o'clock. So I have 12 slides, and we're going to get through those before 6 o'clock. So just to let you know, so stay with me. The first thing I want everybody to do, please, before we get started, is if you can stand up, kind of get ready for the beer that you're going to imbibe in before you go. And if you don't want to stand up, that's cool. It'll play into the next topic. All right, so now that you've gotten stretched out, I want this half of people to sit down. All right, you're welcome. So here's the interesting thing about DLP that I'm going to go into here. So the first thing is that it's easily understood. The reason it's easily understood is because out of all the people in this room, according to numbers published by the FBI, 59% of everybody admit to taking data with them when they leave a company. So congratulations, you are now the moles. Thank you for playing. You can sit down. So it's easy to understand. What I mean by that is it's easy to explain to management. It's not like all the cyber stuff that everyone, you got to go through all the stuff that Coleman talked about. You got to go through all the stuff that John talked about. You try and translate that into CEO speak, good luck. There are cyber professionals that still are terrible at that. And that's the reason why you can't get money for stuff. And because even when you do a good job, they still don't get it. The great thing about DLP is you kind of are able to flip that on its head, and you go at them with something you know they already care about, and you can prove. So don't underestimate the importance of DLP is basically what I'm saying. When you look at this, the other oddball thing about it, it's a little bit different than IR, and I'm going to spend most of my talk talking about how it's very similar, but there are a few things that are not so similar that are actually a benefit for you if you're trying to get a program started up. The next one is it's going to make you really friendly with HR and legal. Who here likes to be friendly with HR and legal? Mike does, but we won't ask why. So these people are going to be your friends. They're going to be the people that you go to when you find something off the wall. You've proven someone took data with them when they left the company, and now you have to actually do something about it. You're not going to go hit the guy over the head unless you're with the FBI. You might be able to shoot him. I don't know. Jesse's not here anymore, but he might waterboard him. I'm not sure. But these are the people you're going to have to get friendly with. So it's a little different. The next thing you want to talk about is DLP is going to enrich your data. The tool set that I'm familiar with is a host-based DLP. There's network-based. There's just email-based. There's Office 365-based. Everyone's throwing DLP into their product these days. But it's going to enrich your data. I'll give you a really quick, good example of that. Someone gets malware on their system. It comes from a USB drive. What USB drive did they use? Heck, I don't know. Well, guess what? DLP just tied in. You correlated that with your logs in ACE, and it tells you here's the serial number, here's the manufacturer. It's that Kingston 3 gigabyte whatever drive. Oh, yeah, don't plug that in again. Get rid of it. Burn it. Throw the thermite grenade on it, right? It's going to enrich your data, and there are a bunch of other good examples. That's just a really simple one to grasp. The other piece is DLP, and to get the program started, it's going to force you to stop doing security just for the sake of doing security. We all like being employed. That's awesome. But this is going to force you to know what you're protecting about your business. And if you're not able to do that, don't even start with DLP. You're not going to be successful. The last two things that I want to talk about is DLP is not the same to all people. I talked about it a little bit. So Office 365, you can throw in DLP on your email traffic. You can throw in a network DLP sensor. You can throw in a host-based DLP sensor. You can do any type of data loss prevention. You might argue that cyber, oh, sorry, guys over there that are drinking already. Cyber, again, that part of it, the external threat, that's another piece of data loss prevention. You're trying to make sure data doesn't leave your company. So that term means a lot of different things. When I talk about it, I'm talking about insider threats, people that are purposefully or, quite frankly, because they're just ignorant to it, leaking data outside of your infrastructure. The other thing is DLP is important. It's easy to prove that when you look at the numbers, when you talk to the people in your business, and you start to build those relationships. So let's break all this down. Make DLP extremely simple. The first thing you have to focus on in DLP is you have to have the right data and know what data you're going to look for. This is going to be, if you're a bank, you're going to be looking for PCI. If you're a healthcare provider, it's PHI. You've got PII. You've got IP. In some cases, you just have I. You have a bunch of information, you know absolutely nothing about it, and you have to figure out what's important to protect. That's not going to work out so well in that last scenario, but in the other ones, you at least have to have something that's defined that you are going to go look for. You need to know a lot about it in a detailed way. You can't say, I want to protect credit card data. Okay, what does credit card data look like? Well, it's a certain combinations of digits in a certain pattern that there's a good thing you can just plop in from any DLP tool and look for. Great. What if it's IP? What does your intellectual property look for in your company? How many of you work for a manufacturing company? Okay, couple. How many of you work for a bank? All right. So what are the things that's important to you to protect? In a manufacturing company, you build something, you make a product that is better than someone else's, at least I hope it is. Or you make it a lot faster than someone else. What is that something? How do you define it? Why are you better than your competitors? Okay, get someone to tell you about that and then go look for it. Is it the process by which you make it? Is it a keyword that's the chemical formulation? If you work at Ashland, there's a certain product or mix you do. How do you find it? What's the data? Then, once you have what you're looking for, you're going to look for certain events. Copying stuff to USB drive. Leaking something out to Dropbox. Or emailing it to a Gmail account. Or a person's getting ready to leave the company in about 30 days, and all of a sudden they print a whole bunch of stuff from a shop floor machine. It's probably the process by which they make something, and you might want to go take a look at it. What are the events that you want to look through? Then once you have those events, what's your response? This is probably the area where it's the most different than traditional IR. None of this is any different than incident response from what a lot of you probably already know from the cyber side, right? Response here is going to involve talking to an actual human in the business, not an IT guy to get logs, not a sysadmin for some other reason to give you access. This is going to be, hey, I saw this file go out to Gmail from this person that writes our MSDS safety sheets. I think it has this chemical compound in it. Is that important to you? Do you care? I don't know who this person is. I don't even know what this compound is. Pi-triethylene, whatever. I have no idea what that means. As a security guy, you can look at an IP and incident response and say, that's bad, that's Deep Panda, that's, shell whoever. In this area, you can't do that. It's a lot different. So this is where it's a lot different. Then once you've done that, what's your process that you're going to wrap around it? And I hope that those of you that are paying attention realize how simple this should be. All right? What's your process that you're going to wrap around it? You've got your data. You've got your events. This is all the same as incident response, folks. What's your response going to be? How are you going to interact with people? Justin talked about how do you make a rock star incident response team? You have the right people that can communicate within a team. Here, you've got to have the right people that can communicate with a business. So it's a little bit different. But then what's your process going to be? How are you going to interact with those either business leaders, if it's like a marketing strategy that's important, or scientists that are down in the weeds in a lab? How do you wrap all that together? What's it going to look like? So hopefully you get the point. It's really not that difficult conceptually. So let's go into some ways you can approach it. If you look at the different paths you can take, some of these are probably fairly obvious to you. But let's go through them real fast and kind of the value of them. If you look at some of the statistics, they talk about 60 to 80% of people that are going to take data with them, they took it in the last 30 days of employment. So employee exit reviews, this is one that I would strongly suggest you work towards. If you have any type of DLP capability, I'm not going to go into tool sets. You can, Google search, talk to Gartner, Forrester, or better yet, talk to somebody that's actually done it and get some advice there. But employee exits is one really good way that you're going to catch data loss. This is where people start to really care too. If you're an active employee, you email something, you put something on a USB drive, that's a backup. I don't really care about that. Or, oh, yeah, I just terminated that guy because he's a jerk and he's leaving and he just put 50 of our most sensitive documents on a thumb drive. Now I'm going to care. Let's go talk to legal. Yay. So the next thing is, in order to have, I think, the best success, you're going to have to get and talk with the business. I talked about it a little bit. But make your business actually create the rule sets that you're going to go look for. As the security guy, I go into these conversations, and my day job beyond DLP is security architecture, which means I tell people what not to do, not what to do. But when you look at this and you talk through these things with the business, you have no idea what's important to the company. You might know what's the most important product that you make. Let's say you make aircraft engines. Great. What's different about our aircraft engines than someone else? Oh yeah, well we use this cool compound. All right, well what about that compound? What's it look like? You keep diving deeper and they end up building the rule sets for you. Who's an RE in the room? Who does reverse engineering? One person does reverse engineering? I know that's a lie. But that's okay. You can't reverse engineer a scientist. You can't break him apart into his pieces and rip him apart and take his brain out. So you have to go talk to him, which is sometimes hard, but you can get some really good insights. I've talked with some of the guys in the lab, and they will be really excited to tell you all these cool formulas or stuff they came up with and engineered. And you're sitting there, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm going to go look for that stuff. So use that to your advantage. Get to know your business, right? The last piece here on the top, quite frankly, we don't do it today. I know that there's a lot of data science going on right now. You can do some research on pattern analysis. I know there's one company that this is like their bread and butter, like FileTrek, I think is the name of it, where their DLP solution is basically all math. That's great. That will probably have some results for you, but you're not going to know anything more about your business. You're not going to learn anything new to carry your program forward. And if those algorithms fail, you're kind of SOL. So I like the other two approaches better. If anybody has any success on the third one, then awesome. I'd love to talk to you over a beer when we get there. The last pieces kind of all run together. Basically, do the basics first, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. And don't assume that one size or one approach is going to fit all the things that you need to protect. So if you've got, credit card environment as part of your business, you're going to protect that a lot differently than you're going to protect your intellectual property about a product. So look at all the different solutions that are available to you. It kind of goes into my next point of don't confuse. People try to use the term DLP and DRM as two different things. It's all about preventing the loss of data, right? But don't use a DRM solution or a DLP solution where the other one should be in play. I've got a really good example of this. So one experience I've had is they said, all right, we're going to take the most important data that we have. We're going to lock it away in this one place. And everyone, kind of like the example earlier that Justin was talking about, people are going to interact with this data, but we're going to store it all over here. We're going to virtualize the front end to it. It's all going to be in this one spot. And then when the data leaves, we're going to track it. Okay, cool. It sounds like a really good idea. Air gap, essentially, air gap this environment so that nobody can get to the data from an external threat perspective. It might work for that. As an insider threat thing, I can tell you we kind of went about it wrong. Because we basically said all the data that goes into this environment is important. Guess what people did when they migrated data? They grab their My Documents folder, they drag it over to this other environment, and then they track every single item that's in there, blindly tagging it. Which might be fine, because you're going to see everything. But then you go and you talk with the business and you say, all right, so I saw this file that came from this sensitive environment. It got emailed outside the company. And I can't come up with any reason why we even do business with these folks. Well, what was it? Well, it's this file called like menu options.pdf. Okay. Well, what about it? What were you looking for that was sensitive? I have no idea. It just came from this area. They go talk to the person. Oh, yeah. That was my kid's lunch menu that I emailed to my husband. And I'm not even kidding. This is the kind of stuff that you're going to have happen if you do a blind approach. So I'm not saying that approach was bad. I'm saying if you're looking to blend the two worlds, know a little bit more about your data than it just was all stored in this place. If you have that as an avenue to you, you're going to store it all in one database or one system, look at something like DRM, where you can then programmatically, you know where it's coming from, you're going to take it out, you wrap controls around it, and then you really don't have to worry about it as much. The last piece I'll say here is push back on your business. So I give the business a lot of credit because without them I wouldn't know what to look for. But I do know a little bit about going hunting and detecting things, and I kind of know like what's going to work and what's not to a certain degree. The whole false positive problem that John talked about. So here you put on your IR hat and your analysis hat, and you can tell when you're going to get into a little bit of a danger. They say, hey, you know, this one compound is really important, or this you know, string of credit cards is really important. Anytime a credit card leaves this environment, I want to know about it. Okay, great. Can we maybe tweak that a little bit? Can we make it so maybe more than 10 credit cards leave the environment a little bit? Because if I do that every time a credit card leaves, I'm going to get, you know, wife mailing husband vacation plans, and we're going to have a lot of false positives. Push back on your business a little bit. Let them drive, but then correct them where necessary to get the best results. So, maturity with DLP. I was talking with Coleman about this a little bit ago, and we were talking about the whole preventative doesn't work. Kind of plays into this a little bit, so let's walk through it. So, stages of DLP maturity. First, it starts with visibility. Sounds a lot like IR, right? Sounds a lot like standing up your traditional security program. You have visibility so that you can see what's going on and so you can learn. This is one where I translate this into CEO speak is, if you have a police force, you have patrols, right? You have them going around your city, they're looking for something. That's baseline. If you don't have a police force to look, you're not going to be successful in catching any criminals. So that's the baseline you have to have. You start there. You get your software deployed. You get your network sensor up. You configure your email filter to look for something. Or you just get it looking. The next piece is you go into detective mode. So I talk about crown jewels. That's what we kind of call the most important things the business wants to protect. But once you know what those things are, and it's an iterative process, you're not going to get it the first time. Your first batch of rules are going to suck. I've seen that happen. We've got one right now that's terrible, and we're going to work with the business to figure it out. But once you get there, you get into detective mode. This is absolutely the most valuable mode you're going to be in, and I think all of you can understand why. If you have tools that can sniff packets all day, or that are host-based AV, wonderful. If they don't have anything to look for, they're pointless. So how do you get those things? This is where it's different. You have to go talk to those people and figure out what the important information in your company looks like. So here's where you spend the most time focusing, and I don't think you're ever done with it. Are you ever done with getting better indicators? No. Are you ever done tuning false positives? No, because you're not going to have the coverage you need. So that's where you're going to spend the most of your time. Once you get there, once you get something tuned down to a point where the business says, I absolutely care about this, and when that event fires, that email outside the company or upload to Dropbox, I want to prevent that, now you move up to the next level of maturity. You've convinced the business that they care about something so much, and you've told them it's going on, Now they're going to actually write their own policy. Believe it or not, this has worked. They write their own policy within the business that says, hey, you know what? Our entire business unit is never going to upload this stuff to Dropbox or put it on a USB drive. I had a really good success story here. So we started looking for particular things within one of the products that we make at Ashland. And this was within probably the first 3 months of us standing up the tool. We were still in kind of a pilot phase. We only had it on about 600 systems. However, what we saw is one person had uploaded that, or rather, one person had emailed a sensitive file out to a Gmail account. Okay, cool. We'll take a look. We'll investigate. We'll ask the business partner that we've been working with, do you know why this would ever have to occur? Do you know anything about this file or what it might contain beyond the keyword we were looking for? He said, no, I'll go take a look. Well, come to find out, I gotta be a little careful here, but come to find out, the person this guy was sending it to used to work for our company and had been hired on in a temporary capacity, and we were just sending data out to the person's Gmail account rather than keeping their Ashland ID active. So we might correct that problem. However, the add-on to that whole thing was the place he was sending it from was in his My Documents, users folder, under a Dropbox folder. Great, so now he's syncing all this data to the net as well as emailing it out. This was like the greatest finding ever for a DLP guy. I know it might not get some of you jazzed up, but this was like, I've got something really cool here that we would have never seen. And I say it's really cool because we presented that at our operating committee, all the presidents of all the businesses, and the president of that company said, absolutely no more Dropbox, period, you're going to block it. Okay, done. I just got the president of a company to actually take an action based on something the security team found. That's pretty cool. How many times has that happened to you? I hope a lot, but chances are it hasn't. So, like I said, don't underestimate the value of DLP and what it can do for you and do for your security team and your visibility. I'll finish this out by saying why the value of preventative being, 1 lock. Why not 3? I prevent stuff. That's the whole point, right? Yeah, it's the same argument. Only in this case, the reason why that's not so important is because, great, I prevented everyone from uploading it to Dropbox. An insider threat's going to get smarter, and he's going to do something probably easier that I'm not able to block yet. Because it's really hard to say no USB usage throughout the entire company. Or no creating a draft email so you can pick it up over on the other end when your email syncs. Things like that. So you will continue to get smarter. You will have some wins. You'll get the business to write their own policy, which would be really awesome. And I've seen it happen. But ultimately, you're going to spend all your time in this detective phase. I think that's something everybody else here can probably relate to. So, quote time. I've never read this book. In fact, my wife pointed this out. I was going through my slides the other day, and she looked down and she said, have you read that? I said, no. But it was a really good quote, and I Google searched it, and so, as Coleman said, it's probably from this book, I'm not sure. She said, well, yeah, but it's on your bookshelf, right? I said, yeah. But so no, I haven't read it, but it kind of illustrates the point. Know your enemy, right? So you hear this in, cyber intelligence all the time. Know your enemy, but also know yourself. That's the whole point of DLP. So if you know yourself, you know your enemy because the whole point of insider threat is they are you. There's no reason why you shouldn't be 100% successful, right? That's a crap quote. But you can try at it, right? So you can try at it. And here's a good example. What I think is a good example. I made it. But a good example of how you embed yourself in the business. And this is probably an eye chart to everybody. I'm sorry. It's the only one left. But I presented this out to the business, and I feel like it gave me a little bit of, little bit of justification with them. They trusted me a little bit more. And it goes back to that thought of, I'm just the security guy. In this case, I don't have the intel. You do. Tell me about it. Embed yourself in their business process. If it's selling a product, which is probably what a lot of people deal with, especially manufacturing, yours might look different if you're in financial or healthcare. But if you're selling a product, there's always a first stage. There's R&D. There's an acquisition that happens. You bring something new in. You need to start there, because once it's out, once it's proliferated, now you got to go work in reverse. So start there. They're going to commercialize it. Once they've commercialized it, keep tabs on it. You should be meeting with these people monthly. Keep tabs on what's the product mix looking like. What's our most significant product? You told me last month this is what we really need to protect. Is that still valid? And in the commercialization stage, in that maintain and monitor stage, who are our competitors? Feed that to your cyber intel team. Who really wants to steal this stuff, or who's trying to compete with us in the industry? Then on the back end of all of this, you've got that strategic shift that's going to happen. At some point, you're either going to stop making that product because now everybody knows how, or everybody else has got just as efficient as you are at it. And then you're going to shift gears. Get out ahead of that. Know what's coming. And then, just like John was saying with the indicator piece, in here, you actually get to bounce things off your radar. It's not like that IP that was, from 3 years ago that you still kind of want to keep tabs on. Here, we don't care about that product anymore. Great. I don't have to focus on it. I no longer have to waste cycles searching for it. That's something that you want to know. So you've done all this great work. You've got your tool up and running. Now what the heck are you going to do with it? Hopefully I've given you some good examples. But the one thing to keep in mind is this is, again, it's just like cyber incident response. Do you expect to find exfil every single day? Your CISO is coming over to you. Hey, did you find any exfil yet? No. We won't call this, we'll call this person Lenny. So Lenny comes over to you. Did you find exfil yet? No, I haven't found it yet. Okay, are you going to find any this quarter? Well, I don't know. I kind of hope not, because I don't really want anybody to steal anything, but yeah, that'd be really cool, wouldn't it? Seriously, you need to find exfil. Chris, stop. You're doing it wrong. You obviously haven't found anything yet. What the heck's going on? Please stop. Lenny, go away. I don't need you breathing down my neck with this, because this is, again, it's just like cyber IR. Do you expect to find exfil every day? No, 1%. Exactly, right? So expect the expected. If you're in incident response on the cyber side, you know what this looks like. You get all the data. You go through the false positives. You prioritize your indicators. You say the Qualys scan doesn't matter anymore. And then you learn which rabbit holes you want to go down, which hunts you want to go on, and which ones you don't. And that's because that subtle difference I talked about, this one you're actually impacting real people. So, hey, business person over here, in the lab, you make the most important stuff for our company. Did you mean to email this file outside the company? Because I think you're the mole, right? Like that's a tough conversation to have, especially if you're relying on a business partner to do it. I can tell you I work with 2 different business units right now, and one business unit is really good. They'll go in, they'll ask the hard question. The other business unit says, hey, can you send that email for me? You can put me on copy, but that's a really hard conversation. So think about that when you're going through this. Those rabbit holes you're going to dive down are a little bit more impactful, and they involve more than you just kind of going through logs and spending your time. Now you're trying to kind of implicate somebody. The last piece of it is, remember at the end of the day, your goal is to prevent something bad from happening. Whether it's a malicious insider, or whether it's just somebody that didn't think. They were getting ready to leave the company. They've got 25 years worth of data on the system. They really didn't want to parse through that when they left the company. They're retiring. I had one person that was pretty high up in the company that had been here for at least 25 years. They were up at the senior management level and copied a whole bunch of stuff over. And we send it up to someone that was kind of representing for this exit, because it was a senior level person, and had just a frank conversation with them. Hey, we saw you copied this over on this USB drive. Can you just make sure you delete that? Yeah, man, I didn't think about it. Now, we might have missed something there, sure. But that you have to be willing to be okay with that. The other side of this is we had an example where legal team gets involved. They send a pretty nasty letter and say, you will comply by this date, or else we will, waterboard you. No, they didn't. But so keep in mind that you're dealing with real people here, so it's a little bit different. You just want to stop the data from going, whether it's accidental or malicious. If they come back in, they return the USB drive, or they say, oh, yeah, my bad, you learn to be okay with that, rather than the other side where if it's a cyber exfil, you really just want to go either delete the data, all 38 gigs of it, or you want to, go offensive if you've got that capability. So really, you get to choose your adventure here. You get to do a lot of different things with this data. You can take it, you can create policies. Sounds like fun, right? No. So you can go in, you can create policies. You learn a lot of information. So we had all these thousands of files going on USB drives. That's not a good idea, is it, guys? Wait a minute. We don't have a policy that says you can't do that? One true story here is I was on a call talking about the product before we installed it. We said, we're going to put this on here. We need your help to figure out what's important. And this business person said, okay, cool. Helps me out. Then we installed the tool. About a month later, I get a call from this individual, and he says, hey, so my computer's running really slow. How many times have you guys heard that? My computer's running really slow. I think that tool you installed is creating these problems. If this is the way it's going to be, then just take this off my system. Take me out of whatever access that I have that makes you want to install this on my computer. Because quite frankly, if you don't do that, I'm just going to put all the data on my home computer and do my work from there. You're messing me up. Wait, you just told the security guy that you're going to go put all the data on your home computer. Guess what's the first policy we wrote after that? So you learn a lot in doing these investigations, and sometimes it's just basic blocking and tackling. But you learn that you didn't have things covered you thought you did. So the other thing, we talked about personal backups. One of the things we found out is tons of people back up to their own USB drive if you don't give them another alternative. People have actually gotten savvy that it's important to back up their data. So give them a solution. Work with IT and say, look, we're leaking data constantly on unencrypted, uncontrolled USB drives. Can we fund a solution so we can block this in the future? And you'll get to go down that path if you've already got the buy-in to do all this, right? The last two pretty much speak for themselves, hey, this is the security team. Are you sure that you want to go put all this data out here on a place that we can't control it? It's unprotected. It's probably going to get stolen. Thank you. Don't do that. You do that through kind of pop-ups with your tool. You can have kind of the behind the scenes. You're just grabbing logs. Some of the tools actually allow you to pop up and say, are you sure you want to do this? By the way, we're watching. That kind of sparks people's interest and says, yeah, I might not want to do that. Cancel. And then the data doesn't transfer. And then I told you about the one with the USB drive. So at the end of the day, what can you expect from having this program? Hopefully I've given you at least a correlation you can draw if you haven't started this up, or if you've already started one up, a way to rethink it a little bit. But at the end of the day, what can you expect to get from this? You're going to gain visibility. You're going to learn things that you didn't know before, or that you probably thought were going on, but now you can confirm it and prove it with hard data. You're going to get to partner with some really vested and knowledgeable people in the company. Maybe you don't like what your company makes, and that's fine. Maybe you don't want to know more about your company. In that case, you need someone else to do the job. But you're going to learn a lot about your company, what makes them important, and it's going to make you a better security responder. And especially if you're an Intel guy, it's going to make you a better Intel guy. Like I said, you're going to know your business. And at the end of the day, I talked about malicious intent versus the non-malicious. They accidentally copy stuff over they didn't mean to. You're going to empower your people to get smarter, and you're going to give them the ability to protect themselves. Those business people that you're going to have to work with to get this information, you're empowering them. They're telling you what's important. They're telling you that they want to protect this information. All you have to do is go find it. All you have to do. But you remove yourself and you give them kind of the wheel, and that's going to make them more interested in security. At least it should, and I've seen it happen. And then they're going to be the ones that are driving those investigations, and it doesn't always have to be security kind of taking the fall. Then after you've done all that, you're going to achieve some realistic expectations. I've talked about some of the things that you'll find. You'll find the guy that's got something in a Dropbox folder. You might block that at your policy. You're going to do that. Then you're going to change the game. You're going to adjust. You're going to get smarter. You're going to prevent some things. And then you're going to readjust expectations and achieve some more. So hopefully I've given you a little bit of an idea about what, simply put, what a DLP program can be, and hopefully some ideas on how to approach it, and then how to get out of the conundrum of thinking, oh, I've got to find exfil. I've got to find the mole. 1%. Or 59% of these people over here. So at the end of the day, thanks everybody. If you have any questions, this is the time for them. Yeah.
So how long did it take you to be involved in the lines of business and understand all the processes, and then after you learned that, apply the policies?
Yeah, so it kind of went top down. So my boss, I'll give you the condensed version. My boss actually met with kind of the senior level management and had the conversation of, hey, what do you want to protect? What's your most important thing? Some of them actually said nothing, which was kind of surprising. They said, everybody makes this. We're just a market player. Some of the other ones were saying, these one or two things, these are our most important products. One of them we actually got, believe it or not, we had one of the people that was like the product manager for this one individual product. He gave us statistics on how much of the market share it had, how much revenue it generated, so that we could basically tell anybody, this is why we're protecting it. So that conversation started at the top level. And then from there, they kind of gave their representatives that said, if you want to know more, talk to these two people. And then that's where I kind of picked it up and said, okay, tell me more about this. Give me the people that know this product or this, this thing that we sell. They know it the best. And then we started into that process of what are we going to look for? How are we going to look for it? And then that iteration of, okay, look for this keyword. That's crap. Look for this keyword. Okay, that's a little better. But the nice thing is they're incentivized, because if you partner with those people, they're the ones you're reviewing the data with every month. And after going through like 1,000 rows of USB transfers, they're going to be just like you, wanting to get all those false positives out and focus on the most important things. So that's another nice thing about it. It's not just you on a pane of glass if you're doing it right. Does that answer your question? Okay. Sorry, you asked about the time it took. So the time it took, I would say there was probably, we kind of built a brand new team, quite honestly, so it's a little skewed, but the time it took, I would say it was about 2 to 3 months for our CISO to kind of have those conversations. Once we took that, it was all about tool deployment, quite frankly. So once we had the tool deployed, we did kind of a pilot phase, like 600 systems or so, out of a total of about 8,000. As we were finishing up that pilot, we started having the conversations. The conversations probably took 2 to 3 months of kind of going through, making sure you had the right people. And I've been with Ashland for a little over a year now, and all the stuff I just talked about, we've already built. So it's pretty remarkable what you can do if you approach it the right way. And it's all about the buy-in, though. If you don't have that kind of high-level buy-in to say these are the things we absolutely want to protect, and you go bottoms up, you probably won't have as good a results. Because you're going to have people bickering back and forth. Well, no, my product's better. My product's better. You have to get out in front of that. We have me and that gentleman over there. And we just brought in a contractor to do the exit review processing. So we scripted and automated, kind of like John said, automate all the things. We scripted a lot of that out for the exit processing. And we're going to do more with that. But literally, it's me running those monthly reviews. The next stage for us is to bring in some folks to do more of the alert generation, quite frankly. Because right now, it's all based on that monthly review. We want to get out in front of it and start to generate alerts like you would with, indicators of compromise. So what are those patterns that we want to look for? Know about the Gmail, email before the monthly review and get out in front of it. So we're looking to bring on one more person to do that. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Go have a beer.